My courageous one. Let me show you something about yourself that you have not fully grasped yet. Not the version of you that walks through crowded rooms wondering if you belong. Not the version that replays old mistakes in the quiet hours. Not the version shaped by every hard word someone spoke over you, every time a door slammed shut in your face, every season where the ground beneath you felt uncertain and soft. There is a deeper version of you, a truer version. One that was established long before any of those experiences left their marks. And that is the version I want to speak to today. The one underneath all the noise, the one I designed, the one I know completely, the one I have never once stopped seeing with full clarity, even when you could barely see yourself at all. You were built for something, not in the vague, poetic way people sometimes say it when they are trying to make someone feel better with words they do not fully mean. Not as an encouragement designed to temporarily lift your mood before the next difficulty arrives. Built for something real. Built with intention and design and precise purpose. The way an architect draws every single line of a structure before a single stone is placed. Every measurement calculated, every material specified, every tolerance for stress tested in theory before construction begins. And I am that architect. Before your parents thought of you, before the cells of your body were knit together in the most extraordinary act of biological poetry, before your name existed in any human record or any earthly register, I had already drawn the plans. I knew what materials you would be made of. I knew what pressures you would face. I chose every element of your construction because I knew exactly what you were going to need to hold up under the weight of your calling. This is not a metaphor I use carelessly. When I say built, I mean it in the most literal spiritual sense available to you. Your character, your capacity for empathy that sometimes overwhelms you with how deeply you feel what others carry. Your stubbornness in the face of defeat that has kept you going long past the point where most people would have stopped. The way your mind keeps returning to questions others stopped asking years ago because the questions were too uncomfortable or too large or too inconvenient to hold. The deep ache in you for justice and truth and something real that cannot be manufactured by the world's offerings. None of that is accidental. Those were specifications. Those were features, not flaws. The architect put them there because the building required them, because the life I designed for you to live required exactly those materials, in exactly those proportions. Now here's what I want you to understand, and I want you to stay with me as this builds. Because this is going somewhere important. Somewhere that will matter to how you carry yourself for years from today. You have been living as though your identity is something you construct day by day, through your choices and your successes and your failures. As if who you are is assembled one brick at a time, based on what you manage to accomplish before the end of any given week. As if a good day adds something to the structure of your worth and a bad day removes it. As if the opinion of the right people could confirm that the building is sound, and the opinion of the wrong ones could call the whole thing into question. And I understand why you think that way. The world taught you to think that way. Performance, results, outcomes. What you produce, what you achieve, what you accumulate. These are the currencies of worth in the world's economy. And so you have learned, over years of living in that economy, to measure yourself by what you produce. Every time production slows, every time a season comes where the output is not what you expected or what you were working toward, every time you sit at the end of a day and cannot point to something concrete and say, I did that, today was worth something, you feel the structure of your identity wobble. You feel it in your chest, that quiet destabilization, the question rising from somewhere deep. Am I okay? Am I still okay? But that is not how I built you. Your identity is not something you are assembling. It was established before you laid a single brick of your own life. It was declared before you had a chance to succeed or fail at anything. Before your first word, before your first choice, before your first experience of the world shaping you in directions both gentle and brutal, who you are in me was already complete, already defined, already permanent. Who you are in me is not a work in progress in the way you think it is. The foundation was poured and set and cured long before you arrived. What you are doing now, every day, every choice, every act of courage or faith or simple perseverance through a Tuesday that feels exactly like every other Tuesday, is not constructing the foundation. It is building upward on a foundation that is already perfect and already complete and already permanently, irrevocably yours. So when something shakes the upper floors, when a circumstance rattles the walls you have built from your own effort and your own striving, when a relationship cracks under pressure or a plan fails or a season of disappointment lasts longer than you thought you could manage, the answer is not panic. The answer is not to question whether the whole structure is unsound. The answer is to look down, to press your feet into the ground and feel what is underneath you. The foundation does not move. The foundation has never moved. Not when you doubted, not when you wandered, not when you chose something that took you away from what I had for you, not when you felt in your most honest moments like the gap between who you were supposed to be and who you actually were was too large to bridge. The foundation held through all of that. The foundation will hold through whatever comes next. Because I said it, and what I said, no force in the created order has the power to unseat. Let me linger here for a moment, because I do not want you to move past this too quickly. The tendency, when you hear something good about yourself, is to hold it at arm's length, to let it comfort you briefly before you reach for the list of reasons it might not quite apply to your specific situation, to accept the general truth while quietly exempting yourself from it. I have watched you do this many times. You receive a word of encouragement, and even as you feel it land, part of you is already building the case for why the encourager did not have full information, why the encouraging word would be modified or withdrawn if they really knew you, if they saw all of it. So let me be direct with you. I do see all of it. I see the parts you show and the parts you hide. I see the public version and the private one. I see the prayers you pray with confidence and the doubts that live alongside them that you rarely put into words. I see the history you summarize for others and the version you play for yourself alone, the unedited one with all the footage included. I see what you did when no one was watching, and I see why you did it, not just the surface reason but the deeper one, the one underneath the surface reason, the one even you are not always willing to look at directly. I see all of it. And what I want to say to you, having seen all of it, is that the foundation is still solid. The declaration is still intact. The choosing is still choosing. Not despite what I see. Having fully seen it, I am telling you that none of it changes what was built into the ground of your existence before any of it happened. This is not ignorant love. This is love that operates at a level above what the evidence can threaten. The love I have for you is not an evaluation of your performance that turned out positive. It is an attribute of my own nature expressed toward you in a permanent choice that does not waver when the evaluation would come out differently. You have been chosen, not selected from a pool of better candidates as a runner-up, receiving my attention by default because everyone else was disqualified. Not chosen because you were the most impressive option available. Not chosen because the merits of your case, if presented to an impartial judge, would produce a verdict in your favor. Chosen because my choosing is not based on your impressiveness. My choosing is based on my love, and my love is based on nothing outside of itself. I love you because I am love. I chose you because I chose to love you. And my choices do not expire. They do not come with conditions attached that, once unmet, trigger a reversal clause. When I say you are mine, that is a permanent declaration made from the architecture of my own eternal nature, and it stands as long as I stand, which is to say, it stands forever, without any possibility of conclusion. Think about what that means for a moment. Not the theological concept, the actual implication for your actual life. If my choice of you cannot be reversed, then nothing that has happened to you, or because of you, can actually strip away the foundation of who you are. The worst thing you've ever done is not powerful enough to undo what I built. The most crushing disappointment you have ever experienced is not structurally capable of collapsing what I set as the groundwork of your existence. Your identity in me was declared in a realm above time and circumstance. It is not subject to the same deterioration that affects everything in the physical world. Stone erodes. Steel rusts. Wood rots. Everything in the created world is in some process of change that points toward entropy. But the identity I spoke over you before your first breath is as intact today as it was in the moment I first thought of you, which was before the stars had names, before the foundations of the earth were laid, before the concept of time was introduced into a universe that had not yet been called into being by my word. You may have spent years feeling like something was broken in you, that deep down, at the structural level, there was a flaw, a crack that ran all the way through the material of who you are, not just a surface imperfection, but something fundamental, something that explained why certain things always seemed harder for you than for others, why the same patterns kept returning, why you kept finding yourself in situations that felt familiar in the worst possible ways. Maybe someone pointed at something in your life and said, "This is evidence that you are defective." Maybe your own history gave you reasons to wonder if the core material was sound, and so you tried to compensate. You built extra walls. You reinforced from the outside. You added layer upon layer of effort and achievement and performance and managing how you were perceived, hoping that if you could just build high enough and thick enough on the outside, no one would notice, and more importantly, you would not have to notice what you were convinced was a fracture somewhere deep in the foundation. I need to tell you something about that fracture you thought was there. When I look at the place you thought was broken, what I see is not a crack. What I see is a joint. Architects place joints in structures intentionally, not every joint, but the ones that matter most. A joint is not a weakness. A joint is the place where two parts connect, and when the connection is properly made, the joint is stronger than either part alone. Stone meets stone at a mortar joint, and the junction holds more weight than the individual stones. Steel members are joined with connections that, when properly engineered, exceed the strength of the members themselves. The places in you that have been bent by difficulty are joints. They are connection points. They are where my strength and your experience meet and form something that is more durable than either one separately. Every place that has been pressed, every place that has been heated by the intensity of a difficult season and then allowed to cool, is a place where the material has been tested and proven. Tested material is more reliable than untested material. A beam that has held weight and continued to hold is a beam whose capacity is known. You are not fragile. You are proven. And the proof is in your history of still being here. I want to speak now to the specific quality I built into your foundation that we have not yet named directly. There is something in you that has survived every attempt to destroy it. Every single one. You know what I am talking about, even if you have never put it into words. Something that kept you in the room when everyone else left. Something that made you try again when trying again made no logical sense whatsoever. When the evidence against trying again was extensive and well organized and convincing to everyone who evaluated it from the outside. Something that got you vertical on the mornings when staying horizontal seemed like the only reasonable option, the only honest response to what life was presenting. Something that would not let you fully give up even when you told yourself out loud, with every intention of meaning it, that you were giving up. That something has a name. It is the imprint of my nature on your nature. It is the trace of my character woven into your character at the level of your making. I built it there because I knew you would need it. And you have used it. Every single time you thought you were running on empty and somehow found another mile in you, you were running on that, on what I placed inside you before you knew you would need it. Now let me address something directly, because I know where some of your thoughts have gone as you listen to this. You are thinking about a specific time when that quality seemed to fail you. A specific moment, or season, or decision when you actually did give up on something. When you actually did walk away, or stay down too long, or make the choice that took you in a direction you are not proud of. And you are wondering whether I am describing someone else, someone with a cleaner track record, someone more spiritually consistent, someone more together than you actually are. The gap between the picture I am painting and your specific lived experience is making you uncertain about whether the picture is really for you. Let me meet you right there. In that specific space of uncertainty. Not talk around it, but walk into it with you. Giving up on something is not the same as losing the foundation. Walking away from a specific situation, even a situation that mattered, is not the same as the structural material of who you are collapsing. Humans are not buildings that stand or fall all at once. You are far more complex and interesting than that. You can make a wrong turn on the road and still arrive at the right destination. You can take a detour, a very long and very costly detour that consumed years and left marks, and still end up exactly where you were always meant to be. Because I do not navigate by the most efficient route. I navigate by the route that produces what needs to be produced in you. Sometimes the detour is the route. Sometimes the thing that felt like a catastrophic mistake was the section of the journey that made the rest of it possible. Sometimes the failure that seemed to set you back most significantly was the one that went deepest into you and left behind the material that everything else would later be built on. I was not surprised by any of it. Not by the turning away. Not by the long silence between us, the seasons where you stopped talking to me because you had decided I was not listening, or because the pain of engagement felt greater than the pain of distance, or because something happened that made the idea of intimacy with me feel dangerous or unreliable. Not by the choices you made in those seasons that took you in directions I wish you had not gone. Not because I needed things to go a particular way for my own sake, but because I watched what those directions cost you, and it cost more than I wanted you to pay. I was not surprised by any of it. I built a foundation large enough to hold the weight of all of that. My grace is not a thin coating on the surface that can be worn away by the friction of your failures. It is part of the structural material itself, woven through every layer, so that even under the most significant stress, the underlying integrity of what I built in you remains intact. Let me build this further because we have only just begun, and there is a great deal more ground to cover together. There is a concept in architecture called load-bearing. Most walls in a structure are not load-bearing. They are partition walls. Interior walls that define spaces and provide a sense of structure and organization, but do not actually carry the weight of what is above them. You can remove them, renovate around them, cut new doorways through them, change them entirely, and the stability of the building is unaffected. But load-bearing walls are different. These are the walls that the structural weight actually passes through, the walls whose removal would cause the floors above to sink, the walls that make the whole thing possible. Knowing which walls are load-bearing is the difference between a renovation that transforms a space into something more beautiful and functional, and a disaster that compromises the integrity of the whole structure. Here is what I want to show you about your own construction. Not everything that has been built into your life over the years is load-bearing. Some of it, maybe a significant portion of it, was put there by other people, by culture, by fear, by the accumulated weight of others' expectations of who you should be and what you should want, and how you should spend your days, and what success should look like, and whether what you actually care about is worth caring about. Some of those walls were installed in your childhood, by adults who were doing the best they could with what they had, but who did not always know which walls you actually needed. Some were added later, by circumstances or by your own protective responses to pain. Some have been sitting in your interior space for so long that you have forgotten you had any say in whether they should be there. Some of the walls you are defending most fiercely right now are not load-bearing. They are partition walls. And I have been waiting for you to let me renovate, not demolish, renovate. There is a meaningful difference, and the difference matters for how you receive this. I am not standing at the edge of your life with the intent to tear everything down and start over. I am an architect who loves what he has been building and wants to help you discover which elements are structural and which ones have been taking up space they do not need to take up. When a space is renovated well, it does not feel violated. It feels like finally seeing the room the way it was meant to look all along. Something that was cluttered and confused becomes clear. Something that was poorly arranged becomes functional. Something that was organized around the wrong priority gets reorganized around the right one, and suddenly the whole space works better than it did before. The walls I built, the ones I have put there from the beginning, are still there. Every single one of them. Your capacity to love, even when love costs you something, even when loving a specific person or a specific community has resulted in your own pain. Your refusal to believe, at the very core of you, that the story is over even when the evidence being presented argues strongly for closure. Your instinct towards something greater than the visible, that persistent sense that there is more going on than the surface level can account for, that something in you reaches for even when you cannot name what it is reaching for. Your hunger for meaning that has never been fully satisfied by anything the world offered you, because it was designed to be satisfied by me and only by me. It was calibrated to the shape of relationship with the infinite, and nothing finite has ever quite fit. Those walls are load-bearing. Those walls are exactly where I put them, and exactly where they need to be. Those walls will hold the weight of everything you are being called to carry. And now, I want to take you deeper into what this foundation actually means for how you walk through the world, because understanding it in theory is one thing, something worth having but not the destination. I want you to feel it beneath your feet. I want the knowing to descend from your mind into your body, into the way you breathe, into the pace of your steps, into the steadiness of your voice, when circumstances would prefer your voice to shake. I want you to walk into the rooms of your daily life differently, because of what you know about what is underneath you. Not with arrogance, not with a performance of confidence that exhausts you to maintain, with the effortless kind. The kind that comes not from trying to be confident, but from having something real underneath you that you are not having to pretend is there. When a building has a sound foundation, it can bear loads that would collapse a building with a weak one. Engineers know this and calculate accordingly. They design buildings to withstand specific forces: lateral forces from wind, vertical forces from gravity, dynamic forces from movement, and the load capacity of the structure depends entirely on what is underneath, on how deep the foundation was poured, on how solid the ground below it is, on how well the connection between foundation and structure was made. If the foundation is calculated correctly and built correctly, the floors above can hold tremendous weight. The walls can withstand lateral forces that would push a less founded structure off its base. The whole structure can sway, actually flex in response to force, without breaking, because flexible strength is actually greater than rigid brittleness, and a well-built structure knows how to move under pressure without collapsing under it. This is who you are in me. You can take the load. Not because you are superhuman. Not because you are somehow tougher than everyone else who has struggled. Not because you have some special spiritual quality that most people lack. But because the foundation underneath your life was not designed by a human engineer with limited materials and incomplete calculations and best guesses about what forces you would face. It was designed by the creator of physics itself, who knows better than any engineer who has ever lived what forces you would face, who designed the laws of force and resistance and material integrity, who built you to bear exactly those forces and no more. I do not overload my own structures. I know what you can carry, and I will not put more on you than what you were designed to hold. Though I will always work in collaboration with you to identify and release what you are carrying, that I never designed you to carry at all. Some of you have been carrying weight that is not yours. Weight that came from someone else's collapse, someone else's failure, someone else's unprocessed pain that got handed down to you because it had nowhere else to go and you were close enough and open enough to receive it. And you have been treating it as though it were part of your structure, as though you were supposed to hold it, as though releasing it would mean abandoning someone who needed you or failing some obligation you never actually agreed to. I am the architect. I know which loads belong in this building and which loads were placed here by something other than my design. And I'm qualified to help you distinguish between the two, to look at what you are carrying and say with authority, this one is yours to carry and I will walk beside you in it, and this one does not belong here. And releasing it is not irresponsibility. It is honesty about what this building was made for. When the wrong loads are removed, you will find out how much more room there is, how much more capacity there is for what I actually designed your life to hold. So now you know something foundational. You are not constructed by your circumstances. You are not defined by your worst chapters. You are not a building without a foundation, scrambling frantically to pile rubble beneath yourself, so you do not sink into the soft ground of your own insufficiency. You are a structure whose foundation was laid in eternity, by hands that have never made a mistake, for purposes that will not be abandoned because the difficulty of the project exceeded the builder's commitment. The difficulty has never once exceeded my commitment. Nothing about your life has made me want to stop building. I have been building since before you began, and I will be building until everything I planned for you is fully complete and fully visible. And that changes everything about how we proceed from here. There is something that belongs to you that cannot be taken. I want to spend time with you here, a significant amount of time, because this is where many of my children get confused, and the confusion costs them dearly. Not in dramatic, obvious ways necessarily, but in the quality of their daily experience. In the amount of energy they spend defending something that was never actually in danger. In the anxiety they carry about losing something that was never within reach of being lost. They understand in theory that they are loved, that they are chosen, that they belong to me. But they live as though all of that is conditional, as though one wrong step, one season of doubt, one period of distance could revoke what was declared over them in eternity. And so they spend enormous energy trying to secure what was never in danger of being lost, trying to prove what was already proven, trying to earn what was already given. Let me tell you about the nature of what I have given you. When a king grants citizenship to someone, that citizenship comes with rights and protections and access that are not temporary, not subject to renewal, not dependent on continued performance at a standard the king approves of. The person does not have to re-earn their citizenship every morning. They do not wake up and hope that today their legal status is still intact, that no overnight development has changed their standing, that the grant made to them yesterday still applies in the circumstances of today. The grant was made, the papers were signed, the declaration was issued at a level of authority that cannot be overturned by any lower authority, and no force operating at a level inferior to the one that granted it can rescind it. The lesser power cannot undo what the greater power has established. That is not how authority structures work. You are a citizen of my kingdom, not a visitor with a temporary pass, not a guest worker on a provisional permit that requires renewal based on behavior evaluations, not someone who wandered in from another jurisdiction and is hoping not to be noticed or deported. A citizen with full standing, full rights, full access to everything the kingdom provides, full legal protection under the laws that govern my domain, and the one who granted that citizenship is the highest authority in existence, above every government, every power, every principality, every force, visible and invisible, that operates in the created order. Which means there is no court above me. There is no power that can overrule my declaration. There is no argument that can be made at any level of the created order that could succeed in stripping what I have placed on you. The legal reality of your position in me was established by the most permanent act in history, sealed in the most unbreakable way possible, signed not in ink, but in the most costly and permanent currency in existence, and registered in a record that does not fade, does not deteriorate, does not get lost in fires or floods or the passage of time. Now here is what I want you to feel in your bones, not just to understand in your mind, because these things have to travel from comprehension to experience before they actually change how you live, and the journey from mind to life is one that many people never complete. Not because they are unwilling, but because they have never been invited to do it deliberately. So let me invite you. Feel this. Your position is yours right now. In this specific moment of your specific life, with all of its current complications and unresolved questions and ongoing struggles and things that are not yet what you hoped they would be. In this moment, with everything you know about your history and everything you do not know about your future. In this moment, exactly as you are. Your citizenship in my kingdom is not contingent on having your life figured out. It is not dependent on being in a good season. It does not require you to present a clean record before you are allowed to invoke its protections. The protections come with the citizenship, not with your performance as a citizen. You do not have to earn what was granted. You have to receive what was given. This matters enormously for how you walk through difficulty. When difficulty comes, and it will come because you live in a world that is still working toward its full restoration, you do not face it as a civilian with no institutional backing, no protection, No resources beyond what you can personally provide for yourself. You face it as someone with the full weight of heaven's resources behind them. Not resources you have to beg for on your knees until the begging reaches some threshold that triggers a release. Not resources that might or might not be available, depending on some evaluation of your worthiness that happens behind closed doors you cannot see into. Resources that are already structurally attached to your position, that come with the citizenship the way that access to certain buildings comes with a particular identification badge. Present the identification and the access opens. The backing comes with the citizenship. You do not file a separate application for it. Let me take this further because I want you to understand something about the nature of what the opposition is actually attempting when difficulty comes against you. And I want you to understand it clearly, because a misunderstanding of what the opposition is and is not capable of changes how you respond to it in ways that matter. Here is the truth about what opposes you. It is not powerful enough to strip your citizenship. That is beyond anything it has the power to accomplish. The authority under which your citizenship was granted is categorically above anything in the created order that would attempt to revoke it. So instead, what it attempts is something more subtle and in some ways more effective. It tries to convince you that your citizenship has already been stripped, or was never real to begin with, or has some technicality, some fine print, some clause you did not read that makes it invalid in your specific case. It operates entirely in the realm of perception. It cannot change the reality of your position, so it works to change your perception of your position. It tries to get you to live as though you have no backing, no protection, no access to what your position actually provides. Not because it has removed those things, it cannot, but because if it can convince you they are gone, you will stop reaching for them. You will stop drawing on what you actually have. You will live in the poverty of someone with nothing when you actually have access to everything you need. The battle that happens around your life is largely a battle over what you believe about your position, not a battle over whether the position is real. The position is real. It was established and cannot be unestablished. The question the adversary constantly presses from every possible angle, using every available piece of your personal history as evidence, is whether you will act as though the position is real, whether you will draw on what you actually have available to you, whether you will stand in the confidence that belongs to someone in your position, or whether you will cower as though you are unprotected when you are thoroughly covered. I want you to hear what I am about to say with the full force I intend it. You have backing. Right now, in this exact situation, you have standing. Not after you fix the things that feel broken. Not after a season of proving yourself more reliable. Not after you have been consistent long enough to feel like you have earned the right to call on the backing. Now, you have access. Not to a diminished version of what the kingdom provides. Not to the leftover resources after more deserving people have taken what they need. Full access to what the Creator of the universe has made available to those who belong to Him. These are not aspirational statements about a future you are trying to earn your way into. These are factual statements about a present reality that already exists in the structure of your life, because of what was done for you and declared over you and sealed over you in the most permanent act ever performed. The question is not whether these things are true. They are true. The question is whether you will begin to live as though they are true, as though the backing is real, as though the standing is present, as though the access is open, as though the door that was opened for you is actually open, and you can actually walk through it right now without waiting for something else to happen first. Consider what changes when you do. When you walk into a difficult situation, a difficult conversation, a difficult relationship, a difficult decision that requires you to take a risk on something uncertain, when you walk in knowing that the full weight of heaven is behind you, not as a lucky charm you rub for comfort, not as a vague theological hope that something good will probably happen eventually, but as a structural reality that changes what resources you actually have available in that room in that moment. The way you carry yourself in that situation changes, not with arrogance. The person who knows their position does not feel the need for arrogance, because arrogance is a compensation for insecurity. and you have no insecurity about your position to compensate for. Not with the kind of pride that comes from thinking you are better than others. With a different quality, a quiet steadiness. The steadiness of someone who knows what they are standing on, and therefore does not need to shout about it. The steadiness of someone who knows whose they are, and therefore does not need other people's confirmation of it. The steadiness that is the natural posture of a person who has stopped trying to secure what was already given. People who know their position do not need to prove it constantly. They carry it the way a person with a certain name carries that name in certain rooms, quietly and without fanfare, but with a settled certainty that when the name is needed, when the door requires the right identification, when the situation calls for the weight that their position carries, the position will hold. Your name in my kingdom is known. It is known by every principality, every power, every force that operates in the visible and invisible created order. You carry my name. Not by your own achievement or virtue. I placed it on you. And that name is above every other name that exists in any realm, which means that everywhere you carry it, you carry something that outranks everything that might try to stand against you. Your inheritance is real. Let me spend time on this because the opposition works hard to make the inheritance feel abstract, theoretical, something that exists somewhere in a distant and uncertain future, so far from your current daily experience that holding on to it feels more like wishful thinking than actual trust. It is a spiritual reality that you are supposed to hold on to, but that never quite connects to the concrete reality of your morning, your finances, your relationships, your health, your sense of direction. Let me push back against that disconnection. Your inheritance is not only a future reality, it is a present one. The resources of the kingdom are available to citizens now, in the current chapter of life, not only in some completed chapter that has not yet been reached. The peace I offer is available now, not after the circumstances improve, not after the anxiety runs its course. Now, even while the circumstances are what they are, and the anxiety is what it is, there is a peace that surpasses the ability of the human analytical mind to produce it, and that peace is yours to access in this specific moment. The access to my presence is available now. The wisdom I provide to those who ask is available now, not at some later date when you are more spiritually developed, but now, in the middle of the confusion, in the middle of the not knowing. The strength that comes from being connected to an infinite source is available now, not after you have rested, not after you have recovered from the difficult season. Now. What does it mean practically that your inheritance is real and present? Here is one practical implication. You are not limited to what you can produce from your own resources. And this matters because your own resources, on their very best day, are finite. Your energy is finite. Your intelligence is finite. Your creativity, though it is genuine and it has its seasons of remarkable output, is finite. Your ability to see all the angles of a complex situation, to anticipate what you cannot see, to navigate what has not yet become visible, is finite. These limitations are not failures of your character. They are simply the nature of being a creature rather than the creator. The creature is bounded. The creator is not. And you are connected, structurally, by your position as my child, to a source that is not bounded. That connection is not some rare mystical experience available only to people of exceptional spiritual achievement. It is the structural reality of your position. You are connected. You have access. The resource is available. Now, some of you are listening to this and something is rising in you that needs to be addressed. A question that is honest and fair and that I want to meet rather than step around. If you have all of this standing and access and backing and resources, why do your circumstances not reflect it? Why does your daily life not feel like the life of someone with the backing of the creator of the universe? Why do the things you are facing feel as heavy as they do, as uncertain as they do, as unresolved as they do, if all of this is structurally available to you? That is a real question, and I am going to give you a real answer. The architecture of your position in me does not mean that your circumstances will always match your standing. The citizens of my kingdom have walked through wilderness. They have sat in darkness for seasons they did not choose and could not understand. They have watched plans they were certain came from me encounter difficulty, delay, disappointment. They have prayed prayers that were met with what felt like silence. They have held on to promises through seasons where the evidence pointed consistently in the opposite direction. This is not a contradiction of what I have told you. It is part of how the building gets built. A building under construction does not yet look like the finished structure. If you were to walk onto a construction site at the right phase of construction, you would see exposed materials, unfinished edges, sections that have been framed but not yet enclosed, areas that look like nothing coherent yet, because the purpose of the elements is not yet visible until more of the structure is complete. It looks like incompletion. It looks like disorder. It can, to an untrained eye, look like disaster. But the architect knows the plans. The architect knows which phase of construction this is. The architect knows why the scaffolding is where it is, what it is there to support while something else is being built, when it will be removed, and what will be standing where it stood. And the building under construction, no matter how unfinished it looks, has a foundation that was there before anything else was erected and will remain after the scaffolding is gone and the work is complete. If you are in a season where the construction is visible, where the unfinished edges are apparent to you and to people around you, where the shape of what is being built is not yet clear, and the gap between what you hope to be by now and what you can actually see is discouraging, I am asking you to trust the architect. I know the plans. I drew the plans. I have not lost track of the plans in the confusion of the construction phase. I know which elements are being developed in you right now that will be essential to what comes later. I know which walls are going up this season that will provide the structure for the rooms that come in the next one. I know what the finished building looks like, and I am working toward that vision with complete confidence in the outcome, even in the phases that look most uncertain from inside them. This is part of your inheritance, the hardest part. The part that does not feel like inheritance because it does not feel like receiving anything good. But the journey toward what I have for you is shaped by me with the same love as the destination itself. Every section of the road is designed, and every section serves the whole. I am not being careless with your in-between seasons. I am not distracted during the difficult chapters, letting you manage alone while I am occupied with something more interesting. The difficult chapters are chapters of construction. They are important chapters. They are chapters I am present in at least as fully as the ones that feel better, often more so, because the important work frequently happens in the places where you cannot see clearly what is being built. Stand in the inheritance even when it does not yet look like what you imagined. Stand in the position, even when the circumstances argue against it. Stand in the standing, not because the feelings confirm it, but because the one who granted it never rescinds what he has given. Let me offer you something practical for the moments when standing feels impossible. Because I am not calling you to a theoretical faith that exists only in good moments. The moments when standing feels impossible are the exact moments the standing matters most, and they are the moments that need the most specific support. So here is what I want you to do in those moments. Not a technique, a return. Return to the most basic thing, not to a complex theological argument for why you should feel better. To the most foundational thing you know. I am. Not I am all of the things you need me to be right now, though that is also true. Not I am solving your problem in ways you can see, though sometimes I am. Simply, I am. The ground of existence itself. The one who is before anything else is. The one whose existence predates and underlies every circumstance that feels overwhelming. Return to that. Put your weight there. Not because returning to it will immediately make the circumstances feel different, but because the circumstances sit inside a reality that I am, and that reality is more fundamental than any circumstance within it. From that foundation, from the simple and absolute bedrock of my existence and your belonging to me, everything else can be approached again. Not necessarily with ease, not necessarily with confidence that looks the way confidence usually looks, but with the steadiness of someone who has found the thing that cannot be moved and is pressing their weight into it. The other things can be uncertain.